News now presents a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. Your reader for this hour is Mary Gilmore. Pressure building in airport impasse. ICE officers on duty as funding showdown hits critical juncture. As immigration and customs enforcement officers deployed to ease security lines at airports across the country, the pressure on the White House and Capitol Hill to end the month-long shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security reached its highest point yet. As of early March 24th, however, President Donald Trump hadn't yielded. Instead, he upended sensitive negotiations among lawmakers over the weekend, bucking Senate Republicans and aides by tying the shutdown fight to a voter ID bill, the Save America Act, that has little chance of surviving Congress. The dashed hopes of a nascent shutdown off-ramp came at a crucial juncture as the nation's airports reached a virtually untenable tipping point. TSA agents will go yet another week without pay, and call-out rates are spiking by the day. At least 400 have resigned. In response to long wait times at security checkpoints, Trump sent immigration enforcement officers to more than a dozen major airports. Congressional Democrats and some Republicans have refused to authorize DHS funds until changes are made to immigration enforcement. CEOs of Airport Council International, North America, and American Association of Airport Executives, along with more than 100 airport leaders, implored Congress in a letter March 23rd to end the standoff, citing the growing operational disruptions at airports. The impacts of the shutdown are significant, growing, and potentially long-lasting. The Transportation Security Administration Employees Labor Union said ICE officers have not received the months of training required for the airport security role. TSA officers said the ICE staff were adding confusion. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican, South Dakota, spoke to Trump on March 22nd, according to a person familiar with the conversation, to discuss a deal floated by White House staffers to bring the funding crisis to an end before Congress is supposed to leave for a 2-week Easter recess. As part of the proposed compromise, which has support among key Senate Republicans, lawmakers could vote to sustain the rest of the department, including TSA, while postponing a vote on ICE funding. Despite the shutdown, ICE has continued operating, pulling from a vast reserve of cash allocated to it via the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that passed Congress in 2025, instead of a more typical appropriations bill. Thune and Trump talked about how money could be routed to ICE with another reconciliation bill, which USA Today has reported lawmakers are already in talks about passing later this year. The president rejected that offer. He's got a view about, connecting everything to the Save America Act, Thune told reporters March 23rd. My view is we should deal with the immediate crisis in front of us. The White House referred USA Today to a social media post from the president over the weekend in which he acknowledged that reopening DHS is not his biggest legislative priority. After the White House declined to meet again with Senate Democrats, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat, New York, accused Trump of trying to sabotage negotiations. Border Czar Tom Homan, who Trump put in charge of the airport ICE deployment, has met several times over the past week with Senate Democrats and Republicans in what lawmakers and aides have called constructive conversations and positive headway, especially about ramping up the use of body-worn cameras and overhauling officer training. Meanwhile, scenes of immigration enforcement officers, ostensibly sent to backfill for lost employees and help manage long lines, sparked an unease at many airports. Former Trump aide Steve Bannon suggested on his podcast March 23rd that the deployment of immigration officers to airports could be a test run for a similar move for the midterm elections. Conservative lawyer Mike Davis responded that ICE officers should be deployed to polling locations because people who are in the country illegally can't vote, and U.S. citizens should be glad to see immigration enforcement staff. Pick them out of lines starting today, and maybe the lines get shorter, Bannon said. The scene at the New York City LaGuardia Airport, where CNN reported that ICE officers were sent March 23rd, remained complicated by a crash on a runway between an Air Canada Express jet and fire truck March 22nd that killed 2 pilots. The long wait times to get through security caused delays for investigators responding to the crash scene, National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Homendy said. NTSB investigators began arriving at the scene of the crash by 3 a.m. on March 23rd, within hours of the crash, she said, but at least one specialist was caught up in the lines. We have our air traffic control specialist who was in line with TSA for 3 hours until we could call in Houston to beg to see if we can get her through so we can get her here, Homendy said. So it's been a real big challenge to get the entire team here. Investigators were able to recover the plane's cockpit voice recorder and the plane's flight data recorder or black box. The NTSB will lead the investigation and Canadian investigators will participate. The federal investigators said the runway will be closed probably until March 27. Taliban releases American held for over a year. Colorado researcher Dennis Coyle is on his way home after being held captive for more than a year by the Taliban in Afghanistan, U.S. officials confirm. Coyle was detained in January 2025 while conducting research on Afghan languages. Colorado researcher Dennis Coyle was on his way home from Afghanistan after spending more than a year in Taliban captivity, the U.S. government said March 24th. Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed that Coyle's release in a statement. The Afghan Taliban government said earlier, March 24th, that it had decided to release Coyle in response to a request from his mother. The foreign minister said that after a letter from the detainee's family, the Supreme Court deemed the period of his detention sufficient and decided to release him, the Afghan foreign minister said in a statement. Coyle of Pueblo, Colorado, was detained in January 2025 while in Afghanistan doing research on Afghan languages, according to the Pueblo chieftain, part of the USA Today network. While this is a positive step by the Taliban, more work needs to be done, Rubio said. The Taliban must end their practice of hostage diplomacy. The State Department accused the Taliban of using terrorist tactics to seek policy concessions, and on March 9th officially declared Afghanistan a state sponsor of wrongful detention. The U.S. government is seeking the release of at least 2 other Americans it has designated as wrongfully detained in Afghanistan. Freelance author Paul Overby, who has been missing since May 2014, and Mahmoud Habibi, an Afghan-born U.S. citizen and former director of civil aviation in Afghanistan. The United States said Habibi was arrested by the Taliban in August 2022 while working for a Kabul-based telecommunications company. In a statement, Republican Representative Jeff Hurd, who represents Pueblo, thanked Rubio and President Donald Trump for their work on Coyle's case. My office will continue working to bring Dennis home safely to his family. No American should be unjustly detained abroad, Hurd posted on X. Rubio said in his statement that the United Arab Emirates helped secure Coyle's release. Qatar also has pushed for release of Americans in Afghanistan, Rubio said. According to the State Department, more than 100 wrongfully detained Americans have been released in Trump's second term. Deep fake porn has left this town reeling. Schools' laws awareness lag behind AI evolution. Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's hard to describe the city of Lancaster as anything other than quaint. Its vibrant but small downtown is peppered with coffee shops, bookstores, and friendly locales. It has charm in abundance. The same can be said for the upscale Lancaster Country Day School, a K-12 private school in the area that hosts just about 600 children. They frolic around in matching uniforms and play on crisp green grass once school lets out. Perhaps that's why the AI-generated sexual abuse scandal that recently rocked this town came as such a shock. No one saw it coming. Only that's not exactly true. Students did. One student in particular was sent a pornographic deep fake of his upper school classmate on the communications app Discord, apparently in error. He deleted the photo, left the group chat, and filed an anonymous report to a state-run tip line, which in turn reported it to the school. But the school failed to act, according to lawyers representing at least 10 families. Over the next 6 months, 2 boys at the school continued to make AI-generated content of other girls. The deepfakes came to light in May 2024 when the school received additional information and filed a child line report with the state. But a criminal investigation began only after parents notified law enforcement, according to an investigation by the Lancaster County District Attorney's Office. It was revealed that 2 juvenile male students created and shared 347 AI-generated pornographic images and videos of 59 minors and 1 person over 18, according to the Lancaster County District Attorney's Office. All of the victims were female. 48 were students at the Lancaster Country Day School, and the remaining 12 were acquaintances of the students who appeared in the photos. The 2 boys pleaded guilty to 59 felony counts of sexual abuse of children, manufacturing child sexual abuse material, and criminal conspiracy to commit the offense, Police of Pennsylvania Attorney General Dave Sunday said in a news release. They're set to be sentenced Wednesday, March 25th. Yet the case at Lancaster Country Day School is hardly isolated. Schools across the country are dealing with similar situations. As artificial intelligence platforms evolve, the prevalence of nudified applications meant to remove someone's clothing is growing in tandem. School policies, legal recourse, and awareness lag far behind, experts say. That's especially problematic for the often underage victims of this abuse, 90% of which are women, as studies show these deepfake nude images can have wide-ranging and long-lasting consequences. We continue to prioritize the health and well-being of our students, Emil Kossoff, the head of Lancaster Country Day School, said in a statement to USA Today. Our deliberate and intentional approach aims always to ensure that our school community remains informed, continues to heal, and moves forward together. Some victims are struggling just to get through. For some of the young women at Lancaster Country Day School, the emotional impact has been profound. The creation and dissemination of the images occurred from October 2023 to May 2024, but much of the case is still playing out in court. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. A lot of them were sophisticated, college-bound, high academic, functioning young women who also had all the right extracurricular activities to fill out all the right applications to go to all the right schools, said Nadeem Bezar, an attorney and partner at Klein and Spector, who is representing at least 10 impacted families in a lawsuit against the school, which they intend to file after the perpetrator's sentencing. Those same students, Bezar said, are now struggling just to get through. The families claim the school did not take the appropriate steps to stop the creation of deep fakes after receiving the first tip. The school later dismissed its head of school and president of the board in the fallout. Research shows the distribution of deep fake, non-consensual, intimate imagery can lead to loss of privacy, psychological distress, and reputational harm, and these symptoms can be experienced multiple times by an individual victim if the content is spread repeatedly. You have this future trauma, this future worry. What if this shows up on my graduation day? What if it shows up when I start dating somebody else? What if it shows up on my first job interview? What if it shows up on my wedding day, explains Matthew Fonderanda Dietrich, a partner at the Royer Cooper Conan Braunfield law firm, who represented some of the families from Lancaster Country Day School, and is now representing another victim of deepfake abuse in the close-by New Hope Sulbury School District. This is frankly one of the most damaging things because it's really the thing that we have the least control over. The trauma can change how victims move through the world. For some of these young victims, images were lifted from their social media posts and transformed into pornography, which has exacerbated their emotional distress. You take images from totally innocuous, great situations that were positive memories for these girls, these minors, and now it's turned into something nasty and gross, Fernanda Dietrich said. It totally ruins the memory of the nice moments with friends. Nina Jakowitz, an advocate for targets of online abuse who also has had deep fake pornography generated of her, said there's still a stigma surrounding those that speak out about this form of abuse. There's a real disconnect. People don't believe that the internet is real life, Jakowitz says. But the psychological effect of being depicted in digital sexual abuse like this changes how you move around in the world. Ultimately, it does make you self-censor. That's the profound inequity in all of this, Fernanda Dietrich said. His clients who experience deepfake abuse, primarily young women, are often made to shoulder the burden. It's hard enough right now to be an adolescent, and then you add on top of it all these things, and it's just so much for these young women and their families to beat. Many schools are unprepared, and the laws are still catching up. In 2024, a survey of 3,170 K-12 students, teachers, and parents was conducted by the Center for Democracy and Technology to demonstrate the prevalence of AI deepfakes in schools and how prepared schools were to handle the cases. The survey found that 6 in 10 teachers were not aware of the school's policies and procedures for addressing authentic or deepfake sexual images, and only 16% said their school's teacher training covered how to protect the privacy of a student depicted in a deepfake. Only 13% of the students reported that their school has explained that sharing this type of AI-generated media is harmful to the person depicted. Kristen Wolfell, co-author of the survey, said schools shouldn't have to experience an incident firsthand before taking preventive actions. We have numbers that we can put to this now and figures that do show how prominent this issue is, even if you're not hearing these stories, she says. In 2025, the organization updated their data, finding that the percentage of students who had heard of deepfake and non-consensual intimate imagery that depicts someone and their children's school increased. However, an alarmingly low number of students know who to tell if they see or hear about these incidents, only 11%. Wellfield says schools tend to have greater focus on discipline than prevention and also fall short on providing support to students after an incident. We did specifically ask parents what they want the students to have access to. In terms of providing resources to help students who were depicted, 77% of parents said they wanted the school to provide this, and only 8% of teachers were reporting that the school currently did that, Woolfield said. Lancaster Country Day School updated its re-enrollment contracts to discourage students and families from publicly speaking poorly of the school, according to Bazar and a parent USA Today spoke with. The school did not return USA Today's request for comment about the contracts. The school knows that they have this deep fake issue, and they all of a sudden add this clause to their enrollment contracts, Bizarre says. That to me seems a little disingenuous and unfair, and it doesn't seem like someone's apologizing. In wild times, deepfake incidents are growing. The number of people searching online for tools or platforms that can be used to create deepfakes is growing. And while the deepfakes themselves aren't new, the scale at which they are being created is unprecedented, according to Charles DeBarber, takedown and digital victim advocate at DMCA Buddy. We're kind of in wild times, he says. Gone are the days of using CGI to stick a celebrity's face on existing pornographic materials. Now you can do it with AI on really anybody pretty quickly. Between 2022 and 2023, Alice, formerly Active Fence, a software development company, found that threads discussing and sharing celebrity fake photos climbed by 87%, and the number of threads related to the creation of sexual deepfakes depicting individuals rose by 400%. Wohlfeld says schools need to implement education on the harms and consequences of deepfake abuse to prevent future incidents. In her research, she found that none of these things were being conveyed to the students, or if they were, it was very few and far between, she says. Advocates and lawyers want to tighten mandatory reporting laws. Lancaster District Attorney Heather Adams determined that Lancaster Country Day School officials were not required to report the deepfake incident to the state-run tip line, child line, or law enforcement. This is due to a limitation in the Pennsylvania legislature that families and advocates are working to address. Schools and teachers are mandated reporters who are required by law to report suspected cases of child abuse, neglect, or maltreatment to authorities, such as child protective services or police, when they have reasonable cause to suspect it. However, there is a loophole in the mandated reporter statute that says you don't have to report child-on-child abuse, according to Ferranda Dietrich. In this scenario, it's not one of the things you could be criminally liable for, he says. As of December 20th, 2024, the Pennsylvania legislature amended their laws to specifically include and define AI child pornography as child sexual abuse material. Fernanda Dietrich is hopeful that amendments to the law regarding child-on-child abuse will be next. Other states have similar limitations currently in place, and in several states, AI or computer generated images are not included in the existing child pornography statutes. As victims struggle to remove content, families want prevention. In May 2025, the Take It Down Act was signed into law to combat non-consensual intimate imagery, including deepfakes and revenge porn. The law requires social media platforms and similar websites to remove non-consensual intimate imagery, including pornographic deepfakes, within 48 hours of a verified request from a victim. However, victims still struggle to get their photos taken down, increasing the likelihood that images will continue to spread and re-traumatize them. A 2025 report from the Center of Democracy and Technology found that across 8 popular social media and online platforms, the policy language and structure for reporting the non-consensual distribution of intimate images was vague and inconsistent. The platform provides limited transparency and support, the report says, and fails to provide real-time tracking of reports and reporting outcomes, making it more difficult for victims to navigate their case. The generational tech gap is also setting victims up for failure, says victim advocate DeBarber. One of his college-age clients had to meet with the dean of her university and explain AI generation to them using pictures of cats to demonstrate how images can be altered. They're expected to be their own leading advocate most of the time, he says. Schools need to get these policies in place so especially some of the worst perpetrators can't go, well, I didn't know this was wrong. I didn't know this was bad. That's the thing parents at Lancaster Country Day School wished the most, that prevention had been in place, or at least that action would have been taken after the first image was discovered. The school should be instilling in these children what is right and what is wrong with using AI, Fernanda Dietrich said. They have to broaden the lens and include the perils of AI for adolescents, just like they talk about the perils of drug use or promiscuity. It's a peril of being a young person. Hawaii rallies to begin storm recovery. Rare back-to-back systems wreak havoc. Crews and residents in Hawaii were assessing the widespread destruction left by the worst flooding the state has seen in more than 20 years. Back-to-back Kona storms, which are subtropical low-pressure systems that typically hit the leeward side of the islands, brought devastating rainfall and high winds in Oahu and Maui. Floodwaters washed out homes, damaged roads, submerged vehicles, and threatened a major dam in northern Oahu over the weekend. On average, 1 to 2 Kona storms affect Hawaii each season. However, it is extremely rare for 2 Kona storms to impact the islands within the same month, especially in the span of a week, AccuWeather senior meteorologist Alex Sanowski said. The storm prompted evacuation orders for about 5,500 people north of Honolulu, and more than 200 people were rescued from flooding, authorities said. Evacuation notices were later lifted, but much of the state remained under a flood watch throughout the weekend. As residents returned to their damaged homes March 23rd, forecasters and authorities warned the flood watch was still in effect for the Big Island through the afternoon. A flash flood warning was also in place for the island of Oahu, according to the Honolulu Department of Emergency Management. Aerial images and videos showed inundated communities and destroyed homes covered in thick mud. Scott Huber, spokesperson for the Honolulu Emergency Operations Center, told USA Today it was too early to provide a reliable damage estimate. Our immediate focus remains on life safety, supporting impacted residents, and stabilizing affected areas, Huber said in a statement. As conditions improve, city teams will continue damage assessments across impacted communities, particularly on the North Shore, but also on the leeward coast of Oahu. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. We'll look at the money reports here, most of which seem to be about cars. Congress debates new fees from EVs. Electric car owners could be forced to pay as much as $250 annually under a new tax that is being proposed by the chairman of the U.S. House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Representative Sam Graves, Republican, Missouri, is proposing to include the fee in a new 5-year surface transportation funding bill that Congress is considering. The current version of the funding measure is set to expire in September. Graves' office told USA Today that he initially proposed the EV fee during the debate about a massive tax and spending bill that was approved by Congress last year. The proposal was ultimately removed from the 2025 bill, but Graves' office confirmed he is in favor of adding the EV fee. A Graves spokesman said the EV fee would help bolster the Highway Trust Fund and better ensure that all road users are paying their fair share. The federal government currently collects 18.4 cents per gallon on every U.S. gasoline purchase to help pay for road and transit construction projects, and most states also tack on their own fees. EV drivers have traditionally avoided paying anything in the federal government road funds. The comments come as consumer interest in EVs has jumped as the average price of gas rose to $3.84 per gallon on March 18th, according to the AAA Auto Club. With that in mind, the USA Today Cars team took a look at why Congress is considering the new fee for EV drivers and what it would mean for shoppers and owners. What would the new fee mean for EV owners? Owners of electric models saved an average of about $8,811 on ownership and maintenance compared with the best-selling traditional cars in their cases over the long length of time it takes them to drive the car 200,000 miles, according to the Consumer Reports. A driver who opts for a new or used EV could save $2,200 annually on gas, according to the U.S. Department of Energy. Even hybrid drivers can save $1,500 on gas annually, according to the agency. A new $250 annual fee for EV drivers would eat into those savings. EV supporters have argued that annual fees would add significant financial burden to owners of electric vehicles who already are typically driving more expensive cars that are better for the environment. When state lawmakers in South Carolina were considering a new user fee for EV owners of 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour on electricity consumed at publicly accessible charging stations, the Electrification Coalition, which lobbies for EV-friendly policies, said the state's proposal imposes significant additional costs on EV drivers without increasing the state gasoline tax. Adding a $400 biannual fee and a new tax on charging would make South Carolina one of the most expensive states to drive electric, harming jobs and consumers, Electrification Coalition Executive Director Ben Prosecasa said in a February 2026 statement. How would the new EV tax be collected? EV drivers would have to pay the new tax or fee when they register their cars. The proposal differs from other ideas that have been floated to replace gas tax money that isn't collected from EV drivers. Vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, programs tax drivers based on the number of miles they drive on U.S. roads instead of how much gasoline they buy. Mileage-based road tax proposals have historically been controversial in previous U.S. transportation funding debates because critics question how the government would monitor the traveling habits of drivers without infringing upon their privacy. Graves' office noted that, unlike previous mileage-based highway fee proposals, the current EV tax proposal would involve no tracking or reporting from drivers about their travels. EV owners would simply pay the $250 annual fee upon registering their vehicles each year. Why is Congress looking to raise money from EV owners? The U.S. Department of Transportation's Highway Trust Fund, which is distributed to states to help pay for road and transit construction projects, is primarily funded by the federal gas tax of 18.4 cents per gallon on every U.S. gasoline purchase. As cars have become more fuel efficient and more drivers have opted for EVs and hybrids, less money per mile driven has been collected despite increased use of roads. Lawmakers have been looking for ways to close that growing gap in federal gas tax revenue. The federal gas tax hasn't been increased since 1993, and it only brings in about $40 billion per year at its current level, according to the Tax Policy Center. The federal government typically spends about $60 billion on transportation projects, and infrastructure advocates say the amount is barely enough to maintain the nation's roads and transit systems. Most states also levy their own gas taxes to fund local road projects. EPA is being sued again over U.S. fuel rule rollbacks. President Donald Trump's administration is being sued for a second time over his plan to slash federal car emission and fuel economy standards. New York Attorney General Letitia James' office said they filed a lawsuit along with 36 other states, counties, and cities against the Environmental Protection Agency that challenges the agency's recent decision to rescind an Obama-era scientific finding that greenhouse gas emissions from cars and other sources pose a threat to public health. The lawsuit was filed on March 19th in the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. A prior lawsuit was filed in the same court by the Natural Resources Defense Council, Sierra Club, and other environmental groups on February 18th. The EPA defended its decision to rescind the climate finding, saying in a statement that was provided to USA Today that it carefully considered and reevaluated the legal foundation of the 2009 endangerment finding, the text of the Clean Air Act, and the endangerment finding's legality in light of subsequent legal developments and court decisions. The Trump administration has promised that rolling back stringent fuel economy rules will allow automakers to make cheaper cars, but James' office said the EPA's decision contradicts the overwhelming scientific evidence of the continued threat posed by climate change. Across our country, communities are already suffering from climate disasters, James said in a statement. What does it mean for buyers as cars and gas prices rise? Car buyers are reeling from gas prices that reached an average of $3.88 per gallon on March 19th, according to the AAA Auto Club. That's up from an average of $3.60 1 week earlier on March 12th and $2.93 1 month ago on February 19th. Car shoppers are also experiencing sticker shock in dealership showrooms, with the average price of a new car in February of 2026 hitting $353, according to Cox Automotive Kelly's Blue Book? The federal fuel economy rules that the Trump administration is trying to eliminate require automakers to produce car fleets that are capable of averaging over 50 miles per gallon by 2031. The White House says eliminating the rules would drastically lower sticker prices for most car shoppers. This action will eliminate over $1.3 trillion of regulatory costs and help bring car prices tumbling down dramatically, Trump said in the February 12th White House event announcing the action. Environmentalists and Trump critics sharply disagree, saying that the administration's ruling that the 2009 endangerment finding is invalid relied on junk science and likely won't lower car prices much at all. What happened to car prices last time Trump slashed fuel rules? In March 2017, Trump first announced his plan to roll back stringent fuel economy rules that were enacted under former President Barack Obama, which would have required automakers to achieve fleet-wide averages of 54.5 miles per gallon by 2025. When Trump made that announcement, the average price of a new car was $34,342, according to Kelly's Blue Book. Trump's first rollback resulted in federal fuel mileage standards being frozen at about 39 miles per gallon for model years 2021 through 2026. The mileage rules change coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw dramatic increases in prices for cars and many other goods. When former President Joe Biden took office in January 2021, he moved almost immediately to restore the stringent Obama-era fuel economy standards. Biden eventually settled on a plan that was announced in August 2021 that would have required automakers to achieve fleet-wide averages of around 50 miles per gallon by 2031. The average price of a new car then was $43,355. Uber's Rivian deal to expand driverless rides. Investment in Uber's second big partnership. Uber is investing $1.25 billion in Rivian to build 10,000 robo-taxis using the Irvine, California carmaker's $45,000 electric SUV, the R2. The company said in a March 19th announcement that the deal is a partnership to help accelerate both company autonomous vehicle plans. To help accelerate both companies' autonomous vehicle plans. Uber will invest up to $1.25 billion in Rivian through 2031, subject to the achievement of certain autonomous milestones by specific dates, building towards a scaled, fully autonomous fleet of Rivian R2 robotaxis, which will be available exclusively through the Uber platform, the company said in an announcement. Rivian CEO RJ Scaringe said in a statement that the partnership with Uber will help accelerate our path to level 4 autonomy to create one of the safest and most convenient autonomous platforms in the world. Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi said in a statement he and his company are big believers in Rivian's approach, designing the vehicle, compute platform, and software stack together while maintaining end-to-end control of scaled manufacturing and supply in the U.S. With this in mind, the USA Today Cars team took a look at why this deal is important to both companies and what it would mean for one of the chief robo-taxi rivals, Tesla. Why are Rivian and Uber making a robo-taxi deal? Khosrowshahi said the deal makes sense for his company because Rivian's vertical integration combined with data from their growing consumer vehicle base and experience managing the complexities of commercial fleets, gives us conviction to set these ambitious but achievable targets. Scaringe, the Rivian CEO, said he is confident his company's ability to scale up its production to make the thousands of autonomous vehicles Uber will need for its robotaxi service. The scale of Rivian's growing data flywheel, coupled with RAP1, our state-of-the-art house inference platform, and our multi-model perception platform, makes us incredibly excited for the rapid advancement of Rivian autonomy over the next couple years, he said. The deal is Uber's second big partnership announcement in the autonomous space at the beginning of 2026. On March 11th, Zoox and Uber Technologies Incorporated announced a strategic partnership to deploy Zoox purpose-built robotaxis on Uber, said the Uber investor news release. What are Uber and Rivian's stock prices after the announcement? Rivian stock was trading at $16.80 per share on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange on the morning of March 19th. That's up from $15.53 per share, which the stock was priced at after the close of trading on March 18th. Uber stock was trading at $77.30 per share on the New York Stock Exchange on the morning of March 19th. That's up from a close of $76.66 at the end of trading on March 18th. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. The R2 Rivian's upcoming electric SUV, the R2, which company's officials say will be more affordable than its previous models and crucial to the long-term future as a viable automaker. The company says in a post on its website that the R2 will seat 5 people and have an estimated battery range of about 300 miles. The vehicle is expected to start around $45,000 and to be released in the first half of 2026. Rivian CEO R.J. Scaringe said in a January 29th appearance on the Kara Swisher podcast that the R2 is important to his company's plan to scale up into becoming a mass-market electric vehicle producer. Rivian isn't being designed just for R1, Scaringe said. If the goal is to build a company that's only going to make 15,000 cars per year, it would look very different as a business. But we've really invested in the business, contemplating and planning for Rivian to be a much larger company. And so, because of that, R2 does need to be successful to support the rate of capital construction of the business because of how much tech we're developing and how much infrastructure we're building. What does the Uber-Rivian partnership mean for Tesla's Cybercab? Tesla is one of Uber's main rivals in the robotaxi space, and it is one of Rivian's chief rivals in the domestic electric vehicle market. Tesla is promoting its new Cybercab, which the company says on its website will be a purpose-built, fully autonomous vehicle and will offer rides in your area in the future. Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk, has said the robotaxi will be a big part of his company's overall shift to an autonomous future. Tesla says it plans to begin mass production of the Cybercab in April 2026. The Silicon Valley company operates its robotaxi using its Model Y electric SUV in limited areas of Austin and California. Tesla stock was trading at $383.39 per share on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange on the morning of March 19th. That's down from a close of $392.78 at the end of the March 18th trading. Google Maps has new features that will make driving easier. Google Maps just got a major upgrade that could make the world's most popular navigation app even better. The navigation app is introducing two big new features that can make its directions more informative and adaptable. Google is fundamentally changing what a map can do by using Gemini models to make navigation experiences more intuitive and even conversational, says a release from Google's blog, The Keyword. Here's how Google has improved Maps to make it more useful for drivers. Google Maps' new Ask Maps feature answers to questions. Google is officially introducing Ask Maps, a feature that allows drivers to ask complex real-world questions a map could never answer before. Ask Maps will appear on the Maps app as a button that users can tap to engage in informative conversations. The Ask Maps feature can do everything from provide recommendations for stops along the route to inform drivers about specific amenities offered at their destinations. Using the feature can optimize the travel experience because it cuts out the need for extra research. It also allows Gemini users to ask questions normally reserved for the AI assistant within the Maps app herself. Results from Ask Maps are personalized based on locations you have saved or on places you've searched for via the navigation app. Ultimately, this feature can make actions like finding parking, restrooms, and attractions near your desired destination easier. Ask Maps is being rolled out now in the US and India for iOS and Android. Google Maps immersive navigation transforms experience. The Keyword blog calls immersive navigation the app's biggest transformation of the navigation experience in over a decade. This feature creates a vivid 3D view that reflects the buildings, overpasses, and terrain around you. It can also highlight crosswalks, lanes, stop signs, and traffic lights to make the navigation experience more helpful to the drivers. This feature utilizes Gemini artificial intelligence models to enhance spatial understanding of your route and the landmarks and potential obstacles along the way. Immersive navigation allows Maps users to drive more confidently with a deeper awareness of what they'll encounter while getting to their destination. It will eliminate instances of second-guessing specific turn-by-turn directions thanks to a more detailed view and perspective. Maps' immersive navigation feature is currently being rolled out in the US and availability will expand in the coming months. Why is Google Maps so popular? Google Maps has become the go-to navigation app for over 2 billion users a month, says a blog post from The Keyword. It's popular because the app uses accurate real-time data to provide useful directions, whether you're driving, biking, or walking. Maps also integrates other Google features and services like reviews, so users can see information and opinions others are sharing regarding specific locations. Users can then do everything from save their parking spot to share their real-time location with friends and family on a drive. New Maps features features such as Ask Maps and immersive navigation are making the navigation app even more useful for drivers to rely on it daily. Lexus makes J.D. Power list as reliable and affordable brand. Lexus, okay. J.D. Power recently released a vehicle dependability study which named Lexus as a brand with the least amount of problems per 100 vehicles. Lexus' most affordable new vehicle starts at far below the average new vehicle price for 2026. The Japanese luxury brand makes cars and SUVs that share Toyota's reputation for reliability and add a level of refinement and tech that are typically reserved for final trim models. Here's how much the cheapest vehicle from J.D. Power's most dependable brand costs and why it may be worth considering. The Lexus UX is the brand's cheapest vehicle for 2026. Lexus' most affordable new vehicle for 2026 isn't a car, it's a hybrid SUV. The 2026 Lexus UX Hybrid is a subcompact SUV model that starts at $38,250. It's also the only new Lexus model that starts under $40,000. Kelley's Blue Book average new vehicle price for 2026 is over $49,000. The UX Hybrid is affordable by today's standards and exceptionally affordable for a luxury model. Should drivers look into a luxury subcompact hybrid SUV, or does its affordable price tag come with drawbacks? 2026 Lexus XU trims and specs. The 2026 Lexus XU comes in 4 trims, including a base model, an all-wheel drive configuration, and a more premium upper trim, as well as an all-wheel drive iteration of the model. The 2026 Lexus XU trim levels and pricing. Lexus UX 300H is $38,250. The Lexus UX 300 horsepower all-wheel drive is $39,820. The Lexus UX 300 horsepower premium is $41,520. The Lexus UX 300 horsepower premium all-wheel drive is $43,090. Lexus also offers an F Sports performance-oriented variant of the UX that is sportier and has a different appearance. UX Hybrid F Sports trims range from $42,085 to $48,240 before taxes and additional fees. The UX Hybrid uses a 2.0-liter 4-cylinder engine and electric motors to produce 196 horsepower. It achieves 45 miles per gallon in the city and 41 miles per gallon on the highway. Should you get a Lexus UX Hybrid, U.S. News and World Report praises the Lexus UX Hybrid's excellent fuel economy. The subcompact hybrid SUV is affordable and comes standard with great safety features. It may not be the most exciting in its segment to drive or the most refined, but the UX Hybrid has a solid value proposition for the average driver. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for Wednesday, March 25th, 2026 on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been Mary Gilmore. Have a wonderful day.
You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading broadcasts from studios at 1199 Harlem Road in suburban Buffalo. Please let others know about Radio Reading. It's your service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is David Frothingham. The opening headline on today's sports section of the USA Today reads, Opening Day Dreams. New season brings fresh hopes for fans nationwide. Opening day holds unfettered possibility. New season brings fresh hopes for baseball fans. By Gil Gutekunst, the Arizona Republic. Dateline is Phoenix. We could all use a little optimism. Maybe more than a little. We are in so many ways a nation divided by so many things. Sometimes it seems as if nothing can unite us again. Is there nothing we can rally behind, all of us? And just like that, here comes baseball to the rescue. It is the most optimistic sport there is. Seriously. Opening day is a joyous thing, a classic source of eternal optimism. Anything can happen. Your team has not lost a single game yet, which means your team is not out of the pennant race yet. It is the most magical of days, a days when dreams may not come true exactly, but at least aren't dashed yet. And if that sounds like faint praise, well, it's not. Because any dream that hasn't been dashed is a dream that is still alive. Even the Colorado Rockies have hope, for now. Why baseball? There are so many reasons. Its long history is America's pastime, which is how it used to be known before the NFL steamrolled every other sport in its path. Kids play the game in empty lots or wherever they can find a little patch of grass. A bat, a ball, some gloves, whatever you can scrounge up for bases are really about all you need. And really, it's all you'll ever need. What's great about baseball is that the professionals in the Major League Baseball play basically the same game as 5-year-olds in backyards. Sure, the equipment is better, the skill level higher, the compensation astronomical. But no matter who is playing, the batter tries to hit the ball, the pitcher tries to prevent that from happening. There are innumerable combinations of situations and eventualities that flow from there. But at its core, that's really what the game is about. Simple goals are the best goals. You used to hear baseball philosophers wax, well, philosophical, about how baseball is the only game without a game clock, meaning that it was, in effect, timeless. There is something to that. A kind of relaxed pace, a comfort, the possibility of a comeback always there. Of course, that all changed in 2023 when baseball introduced a pitch clock, which sped things up considerably. Because, let's face it, it's nice to go on and on. It's nice to go on about the leisurely pace of the game, but everything has its limits. Baseball was stretching them. But one thing that hasn't changed is its consistency. It's a long season, 162 games, plus playoffs for the teams that make it. The regular season starts at the end of March and concludes at the end of September. That is a long haul. Some people and players complain that it's too long, it's too wearying, and the product is diluted. That may be so, but I think those critics are missing one of baseball's major draws. One of the game's big attractions is that all summer long and into the fall, you know it's there. There's a comfort in knowing that pretty much every day for the next 6 months, your team is going to be playing. You may not watch every game with the intensity with which you watch a college or a professional football game, or even the latest episode of The Pit. There are fewer of those, after all. But baseball is doing something else. It's a tortoise and hare situation. Slow and steady wins the race. Baseball represents the consistency that enriches our lives. It's that rare thing that's there when you need it, and even if you didn't know you needed it. I live in Arizona. I root for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Baseball is, at least in the imagination, the summer game, and it already feels like summer in Phoenix. It always feels like summer in Phoenix. But where you live, the weather may be cool, cold and snowy even. By the time the baseball season ends, these places will get warm, then hot, cool down, and maybe be cold again. What other sport incorporates all of the seasons? In Phoenix, the Diamondbacks play in a stadium with a roof, which is okay. When temperatures exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit by the middle of March, a lot of that charm is worth missing out on. Still, if you are lucky enough to live in a city with a team, or within driving distance to one, games are a great way to spend a summer night. It's that pacing again. It's leisurely, allowing for conversations, visiting, catching up. It's sort of like a sports bar with a gigantic field in the middle. I have a friend who is a season ticket holder. Once a season, he invites a group to a game. For some of us, it's the only time we'll see each other out all year. But over the course of 9 innings and a few beers, there's plenty of time to catch up, joke around, give each other a hard time. The game is right there in front of us, no hurry. And have hot dogs ever tasted better anywhere? It's a rhetorical question. No, they have not. This doesn't mean that fans aren't passionate. They are, sometimes to an obnoxious extent. Somewhere, Chicago Cubs fans' ears are burning. But the game allows for all levels of enthusiasm. One of my favorite things to see at a Diamondbacks game is people, young and old, keeping the book. The scorebook, that is, which is a document peculiar to the sport, with a particular layout into which you inscribe various combinations of numbers and abbreviations that, once you learn them, you never forget. You document every pitch. Nothing makes you feel more connected. I have been lucky to attend the World Series. The intensity for that is, of course, an order of magnitude higher than for a regular season game in early August. That's special in its own way. My mother didn't care a lick about sports, but even she watched the World Series. There's something about baseball that permeates our lives, even when we don't realize it. You may never have picked up a bat or a ball, but you know what it means to strike out. You know what being on deck means and stepping up to the plate and hitting it out of the park or covering all the bases. Somewhere, sometime, you have sung the 1, 2, 3 strikes you're out part of Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And it all starts now. Enjoy it while you can. The problems and dangers of the real world will begin to creep in soon enough. As the season goes on, yes, sadly, teams will fall by the wayside, maybe even yours. By the law of averages, probably yours. Even then, as Cubs fans who uttered, "There's always next year," can tell you, optimism abounds. On opening day, anything is possible. The next headline on today's sports section is Aaron Judge, top hitter, best teammate, by Bob Nightingale. Dateline is Scottsdale, Arizona. San Francisco Giants ace pitcher Logan Webb has never done it in his career, but it's out of sheer and genuine respect that has him wanting to acknowledge the man in the MLB season opener March 25th at Oracle Park. So when New York Yankees great Aaron Judge steps to the plate in the first game of the 2026 season, 8:05 p.m. Eastern Time on Netflix, Webb plans to touch the bill of his cap, look into Judge's eyes, and nod. It will let him know that they will always be fierce competitors, but after being teammates for 2 weeks in the World Baseball Classic, he'll forever have Webb's ultimate respect. Quote, "It's kind of part of the game now, where there's a lot of tipping of the caps and stuff now, and it's not necessarily my favorite thing," Webb tells USA Today Sports, "but for Aaron, I've got to do it, right? I mean, the guy was just the captain of our team. He's captain of the Yankees. He does everything the right way. And he's such a great person, a great family man, everything you'd ever want," end quote. They nearly became teammates 3 years ago when Judge was a free agent and the Giants offered him a 9-year, $360 million contract, $40 million more than the Yankees' initial offer. The Giants brought in Webb to help recruit, along with former Giants All-Star Rich Aurelia, who was Judge's favorite player growing up in Northern California, and messages from Golden State Warriors superstar Steph Curry. Judge's parents, Patty and Wayne, even drove 2 hours from Linden, California, to join the meeting and a late dinner. Despite the Giants' offer to spend the night, they drove back home in the late evening. The Yankees wound up matching the Giants' offer, and Judge stayed put. But when he saw Giants president Larry Baer before a Team USA WBC exhibition game against the Giants, he came over, gave Baer a warm embrace, and thanked him for showing such strong interest in him and the way he treated his parents. It was so amazing to meet his parents. As you can see where Aaron has become the person he is, Webb said. I remember when he signed with the Yankees, I texted him, "Congratulations," right away. Really, this is where he's supposed to be, captain of the Yankees. Greatest humble superstar. You don't need a 50-person analytics team to let you know that Judge is the greatest hitter on the planet. He's a 3-time MVP, joining Joe DiMaggio, Yogi Berra, and Mickey Mantle as the only Yankees to achieve that feat. He's the American League single-season home run king. He's a 7-time All-Star. He's a 5-time Silver Slugger winner. He's a batting champion, and he already is considered one of the greatest right-handed hitters in history. Yet the most mind-boggling attribute about Judge, quote, he's even a better person than he is a player, says Sean Casey, a Yankees former hitting coach who was the co-hitting coach for Team USA. And that's saying a whole lot since he's the greatest player in the universe. The way he treats everybody, the security guards, the bat boys, everybody that comes across, it's just unreal. I think a real leader is how you treat people when no one's looking, how you treat people when you can't really do anything, when they can't really do anything for you. He's the best I've ever seen, the greatest humble superstar you'll ever meet, end quote. Judd was captain of the United States WBC team, and despite the tears and heartache of losing the gold medal game to Venezuela, the players, coaches, and staff members say one of the best parts of the experience was spending 2 weeks around Judge. They had heard stories about Judge's kindness. They knew his reputation as being one of the game's finest clubhouse leaders. But to see his interaction every day with teammates and staff members, to see Judge make everyone around him feel comfortable, to have him make everyone feel welcome. Well, there's a reason why the Yankees have the greatest recruiting tool in the world, knowing just how badly everyone wants to play with Judge. I had heard so much about him over the years, I was really curious to see what he'd be like, said Michael Young, a 7-time All-Star infielder who was the Texas Rangers clubhouse leader. It's incredible. I mean, the back of his baseball card speaks for itself, but the person is off the charts. In terms of commanding a room, leading a team by both his actions, words, encouragement, positiveness, and competitiveness, he's the very best I've ever seen do it, and I don't throw that around lightly. It's not as if Judge, 6'7", 280 pounds, can arrive to the ballpark and go unnoticed. When he walks into the clubhouse door, people want to talk to him, people want to see him, people want a piece of him. There are corporate sponsorships, commercial shoots, interview requests, and autograph sessions. Despite all the demands, he still makes connections with everyone he sees. He'll make eye contact, he'll give a fist bump. He has a knack for making every single person he comes across feeling special. Quote, he's the best leader I've ever been around on the baseball field at any level. Yankee first baseman Paul Goldschmidt says, I think he honestly cares about the team more than himself, and he lives that out. He just makes people around him better. I mean, I've seen him strike out 3 times, and before he even puts the bat back in the bat rack, he'll tell the next guy, hey, come on, you got this. He just leaves his own performance behind so quickly and just sets the example for everyone. It becomes really contagious where he doesn't make it about himself. There, of course, has been a great tradition of Yankees clubhouse leaders. Derek Jeter was a role model and captain, winning 4 of 5 World Series from 1996 to 2000. He carried the torch until Brett Gardner and CC Sabathia took over. Now it belongs to Judge, who is beginning his 10th full season in pinstripes. Judge shines in WBC. Jeter won 5 World Series rings. Sabathia and Gardner won the 2009 World Series together. Now they'd love to see Judge get that elusive championship too. The Yankees have reached the postseason in all but one of Judge's seasons, but have won just 1 pennant. We'd all love to see it happen for him, said Sabathia, the Hall of Fame pitcher. You see the way guys follow him and want to be around him. He felt that responsibility early on when I knew him, and he was like, I'll take it on. It's been awesome to see him grow into that role, the Yankee way, and how to do things. Really, he reminds me a lot of Gardy, the way he goes about his business, the willingness to play through anything, the toughness and just wanting to go out and win a ball game every single day. The guy is just so genuine, and he has never changed. Former veteran reliever Adam Ottavino is more than 6 years older than Judge, joined the Yankees in 2019, walked through the clubhouse door, and Judge immediately introduced himself. He's just a naturally friendly guy, a very inclusive type of guy, Ottavino said. I mean, I had just gotten to the team, and he's already introducing me to his parents. He's just the type of guy that goes around and checks in with everybody every day. He's more of a lead-by-example guy, but when he speaks, it carries a lot of volume. He just always seems to know what to say, and it's all natural. There's nothing at all manufactured there. Just being around Judge during spring training camp and the World Baseball Classic, said Yankees pitching great Andy Pettitte. His demeanor reminds him so much of Jeter. They're not big rah-rah guys and just go about their business, Pettitte says, but the humility this guy shows is absolutely amazing. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes past the hour. I mean, he is the superstar of superstars, and that's what separates him. He's just an unbelievable human being. It was during the World Baseball Classic in Houston when Judge barely had time for batting practice. He was in the cage for maybe 6 or 7 swings and had run to prepare him for the game. Yet instead of rushing off, he stayed behind, picked up the baseballs scattered around the infield just like anyone else, and bumped fists with batting practice pitcher Ali Madami. Quote, "What really jumped out at me," DeRosa said, "was how engaging he is with his teammates. He makes everybody feel like they're part of it. Whether it's a wink, whether it's a pat on the ass, or just an acknowledgement. He never once walked by me without saying or doing something. I mean, just an unbelievable person. Such a special human being with the amount of focus and tension that's on him. Every move he makes, and handles it all with style and grace. He's a 1 in a million today. He's a special player with special gifts, is a special person. He holds everybody accountable and holds himself accountable." When Judge was the first player announced on the USA team, DeRosa's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Everyone wanted to be a part of the team. Philadelphia Phillies DH Kyle Schwarber had one request when he signed up. "Can you make sure I'm part of this batting practice group? That's why if I'm a player and I want to go somewhere as a free agent, I want to go to New York because of Aaron Judge." Casey said, "I've watched it. He can make a bench guy feel like he's the best player on the team. He doesn't big league anybody. Some guys are prisoners of their own fame. I saw that around Ken Griffey Jr. They can't live the same, but he does. It's not like he can hide, but he fits in with everyone. He's just as genuine as they come." It's Judge's interactions with his teammates that had coaches like David Ross, the former Cubs manager and World Series champion, in awe of his demeanor. They heard the stories from Yankees manager Aaron Boone, but to see it in person was something else. Quote, "He knows he's one of the faces of baseball, if not the face of baseball," said Ross, but who was on the WBC coaching staff. "But he's not afraid to be the first person to speak and own the room. He's just very cool and calm and treats everybody with a ton of respect. Just watching the way he carries himself, the way he interacts with players in the batting cage, the pitchers in the locker room, speaking up after games, it's special, man. His presence is intimidating, but his personality lets down every guard that you ever might have had. Aaron Judge wouldn't have it any other way." Judge, 33, realizes that once he gets to Oracle Park the afternoon of opening day, all eyes will be on him again. There will be dozens of national TV cameras filming his arrival. Home run champion Barry Bonds will be on hand. The Netflix crew will be there to interview him, and then, of course, come all the actual baseball demands. Quote, "I got to tell you, the amount of people that ask him for something over the course of the day," said Jason Zillo, the Yankees Vice President of Communications and Media Relations, "is staggering. Just in my little world, it's insurmountable. A number of people want time with him. The gift of patience for him is off the charts. And yet there's always a smile. Privacy doesn't exist when you're the biggest star in the biggest media market playing for the New York Yankees. I love it," Judge said. "I really do. I wouldn't have it any other way. I just want to win. I want to be a World Series champion for the New York Yankees. That would mean everything." The first headline on the second page of the USA Today sports section reads, "Peeking ahead at Sweet 16 upset picks" by Blake Topmeyer. "So long, upsets, and good night, Cinderella. Good night, Hubert Davis, maybe in a day or two. Good night, Mark Pope. Wait till 2027 on that one. Although Blue Bloods, North Carolina, Kentucky, and UCLA are mired in misery, most of the big dogs march on in March. Cinderella's glass slipper shattered after the 2024 NCAA tournament. Well, except for Iowa. The Hawkeyes retained a slipper. What to make of the mostly chalky first 2 rounds? Well, the easy and perhaps most relevant explanation is name, image, and likeness, NIL. And the transfer free agency mostly benefited Power 4 conference brands at the expense of mid-majors. Plus, this is a particularly good freshman class, and Power 4 programs tend to gobble up the five-star prospects. With so many five stars, see Cameron Boozer and Darius Acuff, playing up to their billing, that's a boon for the high majors, because blue chippers don't sign with mid-majors. Also, this year's bubble was particularly weak. The wheat separated from the chaff. A soft bubble is good for frontrunners. Too much chalk? Does a relative lack of major major upsets amount to a boring tournament? That depends on your perspective. If your interest in March Madness mostly hinges on upsets and bracket-busting stunners, then this tournament isn't for you. On the other hand, the favorites also ruled last year's tournament, but that created an epic Final Four featuring 3 great games, on the heels of some Sweet 16 and Elite 8 thrillers. In other words, stay tuned. The tournament should get better as it goes. If you're hungry for upsets, though, here are possibilities. Sweet 16 upset potential. Number 4 Arkansas over number 1 Arizona. Arizona is the most complete team in the bracket, with 5 starters who each average in double digits, plus 2 bench players who started on last year's team that reached the Sweet 16. So why the upset potential? Well, because Arkansas is playing as well as anyone in the last few weeks. John Calipari's team hasn't lost this month, and Acuff is becoming one of the top individual stories of the tournament. Asked about Acuff's 36-point barrage in the second-round win over High Point, Calipari said, "What you saw is what he bees." I'm not sure if that's grammatically correct, but his point resonates nonetheless. Number 6 Tennessee over number 2 Iowa State. Rick Barnes' 2 best NCAA tournament finishes at Tennessee came the last 2 seasons. Now he's trying for a 3rd consecutive Elite 8. If Tennessee plays defense like it did in wins against Miami of Ohio and Virginia, it'll position itself to pull off the mild upset. Never mind the seeds, because Ken Palm metrics would tell you Tennessee is closer to a 3 seed or a 4 seed. Iowa State has been undermanned without star scorer Joshua Jefferson. He's dealing with an ankle injury. Of course, Taman Lipsey and Milan Momklevich play like they did against Kentucky. Iowa State might just be fine. Number 5 St. John's over number 1 Duke. Kentucky might be interested in what Rick Pitino has achieved these last 2 seasons at St. John's. His Red Storm have won 21 of their last 22 games. Duke hasn't looked particularly stout in this tournament, and the ACC appears to be a fraud. Pitino has St. John's into the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1999, after winning 31 games last season. No more Pitino wins. The more Pitino wins, the more Big Blue Nation will wish that it had never left Camelot. Camelot. Final 4. Be skeptical of Duke. This much we know. We won't see a repeat of all 4 1 seeds in the Final 4, not after Florida went down to Iowa. Duke might be next. If basing an evaluation on the tournament's first 2 rounds, you might think Michigan or Arizona or Houston was the tournament's number 1 overall seed. Duke did not perform like the number 1 overall seed in either of its wins against Siena or TCU, and the sharpest teeth of the East region still awaits. An early scare or 2 is not a doomsday scenario. Last year, Florida got pushed to the brink by UConn in the second round before rallying. The Gators also trailed Texas Tech by 9 points with less than 3 minutes remaining in the Elite 8, but Walter Clayton Jr. refused to let Florida fall. Point being, Duke's scare against Siena could become nothing more than a minor footnote for the Blue Devils, and yet I'd trust Duke more if they had a clutch veteran guard like Florida had in Clayton in 2025. I'd also trust Duke more if it didn't have to face a scorching hot St. John's team led by veteran coach who's a shark in March. On Selection Sunday, I picked a Final 4 of Michigan State, Arizona, Michigan, and Houston. All 4 teams looked good through 2 rounds. No reason to change those picks. Put it in Sharpie. Michigan State, Arizona, Michigan, Houston. National Championship. Arizona beats Houston. I highlighted Arkansas, Arizona as a potential Sweet 16 upset, but I'm picking the Wildcats to survive and overcome their history of March Madness fizzles, which plagued this program for the last quarter century. History aside, there's nothing to dislike about Arizona. I subscribe to the cliche old guards win in March, and Jaden Bradley is an excellent engine for Arizona at point guard. The Wildcats balance Bradley's experience with an excellent counterpart in freshman guard Braden Burries. Add in a front court that's unmatched, and you see why Arizona is 34-2, despite playing a tough schedule. As for Houston, I'm impressed by the guts of point guard Kingston Flemings, the big game experience of Emmanuel Sharp, Milos Uzan, and Joseph Tugler, and the savvy coach Kelvin Sampson. Nobody in the South region plays better defense than Houston. The Cougars could benefit from playing in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 in Houston, too. The next headline on this page reads, Another World Cup Accolade for Shiffrin by Nancy Armour. And there's a picture of Mikaela Shiffrin as she races to her 9th win in 10 World Cup slalom races this season, March 24th at the World Championships. Even with all of her accomplishments and accolades, Mikaela Shiffrin can still outdo herself. Shiffrin set the single season record for World Cup wins in one discipline March 24th with her 9th victory in 10 slalom races. That's one more slalom win than she had in 2019, when she set the season record for World Cup victories with 17. And the 9 wins didn't include her gold medal at the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics. Quote, This season has been so exciting, quite like a whirlwind with all the wonderful races that we had, the Olympics and everything, Shiffrin said. It's been really pushing at a high level for a long time, and I'm grateful for it, end quote. Even more impressive than her wins, Shiffrin's margin of victory in her 9 wins has been more than 1.1 seconds. In a sport where races are often decided by tenths or hundredths of a point, that type of dominance is astounding. Shiffrin's time of 2 minutes 7.61 seconds in the World Cup finals was 1.32 seconds ahead of Wendy Holdener of Switzerland. Emma Aker of Germany was third at 0.04 seconds behind Holdener. After Shiffrin bumped Holdener out of the top position on the first run, Holdener held up her hands as if to say, "What are you going to do?" Indeed. The win also gives Shiffrin a commanding lead over Acher in the race over the overall title. Shiffrin leads the 22-year-old by 85 points with only the giant slalom race at the World Cup Finals on March 25th to go. There's a new era of the greatest overall skier, and I'm so excited to watch what she does in the future, Shiffrin said of Aker. For now, we have one more race. We're both going to try and get a nap probably, and then give it one last push. Shiffrin is the best slalom skier in history, with 73 of her record 110 World Cup wins coming in the discipline. But she's skiing on another level this season. She was on the podium for every World Cup slalom race, finishing second in the one she didn't win. She also won the Olympic slalom title, giving her 2 golds in the discipline and 3 overall. The next headline on page 3 of today's USA Today reads, Virginia wins, Iowa fizzles, ACC sizzles. It's under the banner of the Women's NCAA Tournament. Second round winners, losers. By Sydney Henderson, Megan L. Hall, and Mitchell Northam. The Virginia women's basketball team unleashed a water bottle celebration in a locker room in Iowa City, Iowa, on March 23rd after making history in the women's NCAA tournament. The number 10 seed Cavaliers upset 2 seed Iowa in double overtime in the Sacramento 4 region to become the first 4 team to advance to the Sweet 16. The win marked Virginia's 3rd game in 5 days after coming through the play-in tournament. Quote, "We're still dancing. It's so sweet," said Kimora Johnson, who feels hungry and tired after playing 50 minutes in the double overtime win. "We're a confident team, and I think we believe in all the work that we've put in. Not a lot of people have. They've written us off. We came into March trying to show what Virginia is about. While Johnson is elated, Iowa senior Hannah Stuelke experienced devastation after her college career ended. USA Today Sports has followed along with every upset, buzzer beater, and matchup from the women's NCAA tournament and rounded up our winners and losers from the second round of March Madness. Winners, the ACC. A lot of folks thought it was a down season for the Atlantic Coast Conference. Duke got off to a shaky start. NC State didn't play up to its typical title contending standards, and questions swirled around Notre Dame's roster construction and reliance on Hannah Hidalgo. But success in college basketball is not measured by what you do in November. It's all about if you're winning in March. After going 8-2 in the first round, 5 ACC teams are advancing to the Sweet 16, tied with the 2015 season for the most the conference has ever sent to the second weekend. Only the SEC, with 6 teams, will have more squads dancing in the regionals. Obviously, Virginia's shocking upset of Iowa was the result that jumped off the screen for the conference, followed closely by Notre Dame upsetting Ohio State to punch its ticket to the Sweet 16 for the 5th straight time under Niele Ivey. However, all 3 of the ACC's top 16 seeds lived up to the hype too, as North Carolina defeated Maryland, Louisville outlasted Alabama, and Duke blew out Baylor to advance. Quote, "The ACC has prepared us for this physicality," North Carolina coach Courtney Bangard said. "They've prepared us for individual defenders and really good coaches. I feel more prepared, honestly, year after year as our league continues to get better." Now the question is, can any of the 5 ACC teams remaining break through to the Final Four? You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 31 minutes past the hour. Minnesota Golden Gophers. Number 4 seed Minnesota had not advanced to the Sweet 16 since 2005, but Golden Gophers guard Amaya Battle ended that streak in a buzzer-beater fashion. Minnesota was down 8 points entering the final quarter, but its defense contained number 5 Ole Miss and outscored the Rebels 29-9 in the final frame. Battle delivered the final dagger and knocked down a 13-foot jumper as time expired to give Minnesota a 65-63 victory. Quote, any basketball player, when you shoot on your own, you're like, okay, 3, 2, 1, throw it up there and see what happens. It was real life today, said Battle, who finished with 14 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists. It's bittersweet. I'll never play at the barn ever again. I'm leaving it with a win. We're leaving it with a win, and we're about to go to the Sweet 16. So what better way? Virginia Cavaliers. Virginia women's basketball was on the bubble heading into Selection Sunday, and the Cavaliers were unaware if they could even make March Madness. Virginia advanced through the first 4 and is now heading to the Sweet 16 for the first time in 2000. Quote, we fought to get here. I mean, we were teary-eyed before our game was called on Selection Sunday, and then it was called and we were like, it's go time. Virginia guard Kymora Johnson said on March 23rd, it's time to show everyone who Virginia is. That's what we all came here to do, and we did it. If you don't know who Virginia is, now you know. The Cavaliers overcame a 9-point deficit in the fourth quarter to force double overtime and upset number 2 Iowa 83-75. Johnson led the way, scoring 14 of her 28 points in both overtime periods. She also had 4 assists, 2 rebounds, and 2 steals. Virginia is the first women's first 4 team to advance to the Sweet 16 and the only double-digit seed remaining. Notre Dame's Hannah Hidalgo. Hannah Hidalgo is a walking highlight reel, as evidenced by her latest March Madness performance. Hidalgo led number 6 Notre Dame to an 83-73 upset win over number 3 Ohio State to punch the Fighting Irish's ticket to the Sweet 16 for the 5th consecutive season. Hidalgo fouled out with 40.2 seconds remaining, but finished 2 steals short of a triple-double with 26 points, a career-high 13 rebounds, and 8 steals. With the performance, Hidalgo passed Arike Aginbwale, 849, for the Notre Dame's single-season scoring record with 856 points and counting. She also holds the single-season record for steals, 189, and points per game, 25.2. Nobody believed in us, Hidalgo said. I feel like for me, it's just reading what the offense is doing. Thinking one step ahead, I think, is really big, just reading the passing lanes. I didn't get too many on-ball steals. I don't think I got any. So I think for me, it was a lot of off-ball and just reading what they might do next, and just being ready, being prepared to take it away. Like that last steal when I thought I was going to be a clear path. Losers, Iowa Hawkeyes. Hannah Stuelke's final game at Carver Hawkeye Arena in Iowa City didn't go as expected. The number 2 Iowa Hawkeyes were ousted by number 10 Virginia on their home court in front of a sold-out crowd. The Hawkeyes' second straight second-round exit after advancing to the NCAA Tournament Championship game in 2023 and 2024. Obviously not the way we wanted the game to go, said Stuelke, who finished with 15 points, a career-high 19 rebounds, and 6 assists. I'll carry it throughout my life and learn from it, and I'll be a stronger person for it. Iowa put up 21 more shots than Virginia over the course of the game, but Virginia was the more efficient team. The Cavaliers shot 44% from the field compared to 37% for the Hawkeyes. Iowa was outscored 44-27 in the fourth quarter and overtime, despite carrying a 9-point lead in the fourth. When you look at categories that need to happen, the free throws, the shooting percentage, that hurts because those things are a little bit more controllable, said Iowa head coach Jan Jensen. Iowa shot 50%, 8 of 16 from the free throw line, and out-rebounded the Cavaliers 50-48. West Virginia. The Mountaineers' Sweet 16 drought will continue. Despite securing a top 16 seed and hosting rights, which drew record crowds to Morgantown's Hope Coliseum, West Virginia was unable to beat number 5 Kentucky in the second round of the tournament, losing 74-73. Tioni Key and Clara Strack both had double-doubles for the Wildcats, and WVU just couldn't overcome Kentucky's length. The Mountaineers have not been to Sweet 16 since 1992. West Virginia has lost 12 straight round of 32 games. Ohio State's Jeloni Cambridge. Cambridge's breakout year comes to an end in the second round of March Madness yet again. The sophomore guard tied her career high with 41 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 2 assists, but her spectacular performance was spoiled by number 6 Notre Dame on Ohio State's home court at Value City Arena in Columbus. Quote, 41 points doesn't matter with an L, Cambridge said. You want to win. If I could have scored 0 and got a win, I would have been satisfied. Cambridge scored more than half of the Buckeyes' points, but she couldn't do it on her own. She was the only Ohio State player to reach double digits. The rest of the team combined for 32 points. Notre Dame's Hannah Hidalgo, on the other hand, got help from her supporting cast, with 4 other players reaching double digits in the upset win. It marks Ohio State's 3rd consecutive exit in the second round. Syracuse Orange. Give Syracuse credit for playing against UConn, but the game was over before it started. The lead was 25 points after the first quarter and 53 by halftime. UConn scored 60 first-half points with 9 three-pointers. Ozzie Fudd had 26 points by halftime and 30 points by midway through the third quarter, including 7 triples. Turnovers were also an issue. The Orange spotted UConn 30 points off turnovers before the fourth quarter ever arrived. The next headline in this sports section is Tasteless Joke. All athletes need current CTE education by Jarrett Bell. Here's a suggestion for Cam Scattlebo. Donate your brain. Scattlebo, the throwback New York Giants running back, certainly did the right thing in posting an apology on social media for his silly response to a question about chronic traumatic encephalopathy on a recent podcast. Then again, he should never have put his foot in his mouth. Asked during a segment on the Bringing the Juice podcast whether CTE is real, Scattlebo replied, no, it's an excuse. Just mindless, with or without the jerk move of digging at sufferers of asthma. On top of apologizing for what he called a tasteless joke, Scattlebo, 24, should go a step further and donate his brain to science. Now that would add some weight to the apology. Scadabo's brain, and hopefully we're talking many, many years down the road, could serve a purpose. Maybe someday it can aid research about the degenerative brain disease most closely linked to head trauma sustained by football players, yet also afflicts hockey players, boxers, and those in other sports or situations like combat veterans. Researchers on the front line are optimistic that we're much closer to the development of a test that diagnoses CTE in the living, but it hasn't happened yet. CTE can only be confirmed posthumously, and even with such a test, brain tissue will likely always be essential to study of the disease. There are some things that, as a decent human being, you just don't joke about. No excuse. That Scadabo would even allow words to come out of his mouth that minimize CTE, though, didn't just show a complete disrespect and lack of empathy for the families of loved ones whose lives were shattered or lost to CTE. It also illustrated the need for more education, especially for someone like Scadabo, who has the look of a fearless player prone to inflict as much punishment as he absorbs with his physical, hard-charging style, and who makes me wonder whether he is more at risk for developing CTE. Each off-season, I'm hopeful that I'll get calls from current NFL players asking for the latest research. Chris Nowinski, founder of the Concussion and CTE Foundation, told USA Today Sports on March 23rd. And I just don't. I get one or two a year that reach out and ask questions. And when I meet current NFL players, it's apparent to me that they're not up to speed on what we understand about CTE. And the small tragedy is that their future is not yet set. They still have a chance to make choices, including just adjusting how they play to reduce their future risk to CTE, or the future severity of CTE. And personally, I don't think it's on anyone's mind. Scadabo, I'm thinking, can wear that shoe. Nowinski didn't slam Scadabo, who ended his rookie season in 2025 on injured reserve with a dislocated ankle. Instead, he showed empathy. He was put on the spot, Nowinski said. It tends to be a lighthearted podcast, but the response he gave is representative of the fact that I don't think most current NFL players have really educated themselves about CTE. To that end, Nowinski reached out to the management firm listed on a social media profile for Scadabo and extended an invitation for the running back to visit the Brain Bank in Boston University, which collects and studies donated brains. He can see what it's all about, Nowinski said. Of the 15,000 pledges for donated brains, Nowinski said there are hundreds of former NFL players who have signed up with his foundation. Of organs currently collected for study, Nowinski estimates that the bank has about 500 brains from former NFL players who are deceased. It has been nearly a decade since Dr. Ann McKee, director of Boston University's CTE Center, co-authored a study that revealed CTE was found in 99% of deceased former NFL players, 110 of 111 studied. A more recent study of athletes from a wide range of sports that included exposure to contact determined that CTE was found in over 40% of subjects who died before the age of 30. It's no wonder that McKee, who has researched the disease for more than 18 years, sees the development of a CTE test in the living as an ultimate game changer. She would get no argument on that point from Dr. Alan Sills, the NFL's chief medical advisor, who told USA Today Sports recently that a blood test based on biomarkers could be most practical for large-scale screening. That is the number one goal, finding a way that we can detect this during life or detect when a player is going downhill. And that needs to be applied to youth players too. We need to make it a sensitive test that can pick up these changes very early on, because once you get full-blown CTE, that's never going to be reversed. This is a progressive disease that starts with minimal damage. If we can detect that and arrest it in its tracks, you can make a tremendous difference, end quote. It's ironic that while Scadabo ignited discussion about CTE, Nowinski's organization is in the midst of a fundraising and awareness campaign dubbed the Race to End CTE, with road races of varying lengths in multiple locations in the site this month. The foundation is also recruiting subject for 2 studies. One study, with details posted on bankcte.org, seeks anyone over 40 who has played contact sports to donate blood and pledge brain donations. The other study, posted at diagnosecte.org, seeks former college and NFL players for a 2-day visit to one of 5 study sites across the country. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes past the hour. Even now, more than 2 decades since Dr. Bennett Omalu discovered CTE while performing an autopsy on Hall of Fame center Mike Webster in 2002, increased awareness ranks right alongside the need for a test, especially when there are some prone to dismiss the risk or perhaps unwittingly help by attracting attention to a cause. Quote, "We also need the public to be crying for this," McKee said. "We understand that sports are incredibly important, not just to people, but to communities. But we need to understand that this is a preventable disease. If we can identify it early on, we can prevent this terrible trajectory. It's more important and probably much more common than we think, which is anything but a laughing matter." Next headline reads, "McCarthy is all for a Rogers reunion," by Jack McKessie. The stars may be aligning for an Aaron Rodgers-Mike McCarthy reunion in Pittsburgh, but it hasn't happened yet, despite one party expressing enthusiasm at the idea recently. McCarthy, the new head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was a featured speaker at a celebration of life for former Green Bay Packers president Bob Harlan at Lambeau Field on March 23rd. At the event, Kevin Harlan, Bob's son and sports commentator for CBS Sports, asked McCarthy about a potential reunion with Rodgers in Pittsburgh. Quote, "It would be a great story," McCarthy said, "and I don't know, I would love to tell everyone this breaking news, but it's really cool to see Aaron at 42, to see a young man at 22 and all of what he's been able to accomplish and where he's at in his personal life and trying to make this decision. He's in a really good place," end quote. McCarthy and Rodgers spent 13 years together with the Packers, when McCarthy was still their head coach and Rodgers was still their quarterback. During that 2006 to 2018 stretch, Rodgers earned 7 Pro Bowl nods, won 2 NFL MVP awards, and 1 Super Bowl MVP as the Packers defeated the Steelers in Super Bowl 45. The Steelers hired McCarthy to replace Mike Tomlin, who resigned from Pittsburgh's head coach role in January after 19 straight non-losing seasons. McCarthy is a Pittsburgh native who most recently coached the Dallas Cowboys from 2020 to 2024. He spent the 2025 season out of football. Rodgers is a free agent after spending last year with the Steelers. Last offseason, Pittsburgh spent several months courting the veteran following his release from the New York Jets before officially signing him on June 7th. This year, the Steelers are the last quarterback-needy team still in the market for a new signal caller, excluding the Las Vegas Raiders, who are expected to draft quarterback Fernando Mendoza in April. In a March 4th appearance on the Pat McAfee Show, Rodgers discussed his conversations with the Steelers and whether he planned to return for the 2026 season. "There's no contract offer or anything, so there's nothing that I'm having to debate between," he said. "I'm a free agent, I'm enjoying my time with my wife, and enjoying this part of the off-season. I think there's conversations to be had down the line, but right now there hasn't been any progressive conversations. There hasn't been any deadline set on me, there hasn't been any contract floated in front of me. Interested in what the conversations will be, but there hasn't been any progression when it comes to that." Rodgers suggested prior to the 2025 season that it could be his last in the NFL, but he did not double down on that sentiment after the Steelers' wild card round playoff loss in January. Moving on to the life section in today's USA Today edition, the headline on the front page reads, "Williams Paisley shares her love for Nashville and 911," by Brian West from the Tennessean. In the Williams Paisley household, even an imaginary man can cause a marital kerfuffle. Quote, "I have some very emotional scenes in 911 Nashville about my late husband," said Kimberly Williams Paisley, donning a green sweater stitched with pink flowers. She sits on a bar stool in the cozy yellow home in Franklin, Tennessee. She shares with her husband, country star Brad Paisley. Brad was like, "So what are you thinking about?" And I said, "I'm thinking about Mark." She pauses for effect. He goes, "Who's Mark?" And I said, well, he's perfect. And suddenly we're having this argument about a fake person I invented for a backstory. She laughs, shaking her head. On the Ryan Murphy drama, she stars as Cammie Raleigh, a 911 dispatcher still navigating life after the loss of her husband Mark. I had to explain it, but that's how deeply I build characters, she said. I make a whole world, a whole history, a whole emotional life. Mark was real, at least to me. This year is a turning point in her career. The 54-year-old actress had been best known for starring in the 1991 film Father of the Bride. Now her TV shows are even more popular than all her past movies combined. This spring, Williams Paisley is simultaneously on 2 primetime networks, anchoring ABC's 911 Nashville and returning as host of Fox's hit dating series Farmer Wants a Wife. And she's the emotional compass of both. I love doing the prep, she said. I create memories for the characters. I build everything before I even show up on set. A good night's sleep, packing my lunch, being ready for anything. It's a lot of imagination and a lot of fun. Charging 25 cents for shows. Before the call sheets and the camera rigs, before the dispatch training and before Mark, there was a little girl in Rye, New York, performing for friends and family on the living room floor. I wanted to be an actor for as long as I can remember. When I was 4 or 5 years old, I would make up performances and force my parents and friends to watch. I charged them 25 cents. I was always a businesswoman. Sometimes she would cast her 2 younger siblings, Ashley Williams and Jay Williams, in supporting roles. I don't think they got a cut of the 25 cents, she added. By middle school, the precocious teen booked her first audition, a spot for the National Dairy Board. I got cut, but I didn't care, because I still love being on a set. She still qualified to receive residuals, and she's still qualified to receive residuals. Through her middle and high school years, Williams Paisley booked commercials for Stridex, Clearasil, and OB tampons, booking Father of the Bride. She enrolled at Northwestern University, planning to keep acting to a minimum and focus on school. Life, however, nudged her back into the spotlight. A friend connected her with an audition she almost skipped for the remake of Father of the Bride. I wanted to take the L train by myself, she said of the Chicago public transportation. That was my goal, to figure out the L. I didn't think I'd get the part, but they told me I didn't get it. They even told me I didn't get it, twice. But between studies, the casting team called and wanted her to come to Los Angeles for a screen test. She put school on hold after booking the role and was told to buy a first-class ticket. She'd be reimbursed later. Hollywood was a lot, she said. Waxing, plucking, wardrobe fittings, coaching, the whole thing. I was 20 and alone. It was high pressure and surreal. The film became a phenomenon. Her headshot appeared on the front page of USA Today in December 1991. The spotlight was immediate, overwhelming. Northwestern held a screening. After walking out of the theater, she realized her life had shifted. Suddenly, everyone looked at me differently, she said. Steve Martin offered practical guidance. He taught me what a turnaround was, she said. His best advice, get a therapist. Diane Keaton offered warmth and modeled how to stay human amid fame. But the film also set something else in motion, her future relationship with Paisley. Brad had gone to see that movie with his girlfriend, and that was their movie, she said. She broke his heart, and he wrote some great music from it. Years later, as the country star prepared to shoot a music video for I'm Gonna Miss Her, the Fishin' song, his team reached out to her team. As luck would have it, Williams Paisley had just told her manager she wanted to appear in a music video. Her manager predicted that they would end up together, describing the country singer as a cute guy with a southern accent who would be perfect for the young actress to date. Paisley flew to Los Angeles to meet her, but only after booking himself on Hollywood Squares to score a free flight. He could have just bought the ticket, she said, laughing, but it was sweet. We had dinner at Marina del Rey, and he felt refreshing. They married in 2003, building a life in Nashville. By then, she was starring in According to Jim, which filmed on a 3 weeks on, 1 week off schedule. I'd fly to Nashville on my weeks off, and Brad would fly to see me on my on weeks, she said. The couple settled permanently in Tennessee once she became pregnant with William Huckleberry, born in 2007. In 2009, they had Jasper Warren. Music City, she said, felt right. I have such dear friends here, she said. It's been a great place for my kids, and it's also a really vibrant city. There's so much happening here. Their Franklin home reflects the colorful life they've built. Guitars adorn the walls, Marvel action figures and signs coat the dining room. A piano sits by an old-fashioned red swinging door that shrieks to life any time it's opened and closed. But one of the most striking details is the hardwood floor of the bar, a cutout made from original Ryman Auditorium stage wood. She bought it for Brad as a gift. In 2020, the two opened The Store, a free referral grocery founded with Belmont University that quickly became a lifeline during tornado disaster and COVID-19 shutdown. In January, they opened a second location at TriStar Centennial Medical Center, just in time for an ice storm that knocked out power across Middle Tennessee. Quote, "We've always operated through crisis, but the community shows up with volunteers and donations and farmers bringing produce," she said. "Nashville takes care of its own." That includes superstar Taylor Swift, who made a donation at the end of 2025. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been David Frothingham.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 8 of Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. Following that, at 3 o'clock, is Healthy Living, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a serialized reading of the book.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.